And what's going on, everybody? Well, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. You hit record really quick there.
I did, and y'all were going to get to hear all the comments beforehand.
I have to say, for you guys that follow the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell case, Fruit Loop's new background, when she gets up before we go on, it looks like she just portals out.
I'm Portland.
Yep.
Whoop, whoop.
I got to get me a
Yeah.
portal. So, real quick, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Too Cool T-Shirt Quilts. You can go to toocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. Pick out something nice for yourself or somebody you love. Fruit Loop, what can they do?
They can take your t-shirts and make them into a quilt that is too cool.
Yes, they can. So, we are summarizing the big cases we've covered this year since it's almost the end of the year. And today we're going to talk about Victoria Rose Smith, which is a local case for us.
Yep.
Right down the road. She's actually in jail 7 minutes from my house.
Yep. Heart-wrenching.
Oh, it is a terrible, terrible case. I've talked to some of the family members. I know people that know the biological mom. And so it's just terrible. And for those of you who have not covered this, we do have prior episodes where we really take deep dives into all that came before and after this tragedy. But we're going to summarize today. So just to reintroduce you guys or introduce you to this case, 3-year-old Victoria Rose Smith was murdered by her foster mom, Ariel Robinson, on January 14th this year in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Both Ariel and her husband, Jerry, were arrested on January 19th for her death. The cause of death was ruled as a series of blunt force injuries.
Yeah.
They are charged with murder by and homicide by child abuse. So the story goes that originally Victoria Rose and her brothers were removed from the home by DSS a while back before the murders. The mother had been taking all these classes and was submitting to drug tests randomly in order to be reunited with her children. But according to the mom, DSS was changing the parameters and they just drugged the process out for her. I remember one time in an interview locally, she said that, or the family spokesperson had said that she was ordered to go to Spartanburg or somewhere kind of far from Greenville to take a drug test, and she didn't have transportation. So she was trying to, number one, make the court aware of that she didn't have transportation, or was trying to make alternate arrangements, and they just didn't do anything. They just kind of filed that as a no-show. So everything she did, they kind of seemed like they just put her back a step.
Yep.
And in the end, the children were taken due to lack of proper housing. And the family spokesperson said DSS didn't direct her to any kind of assistance that she could get in the community and basically just told her to figure it out on her own. So the mother felt bullied by DSS to give her up her rights to the children. And I mean, it should be noted, they were never physically abused in the home. It was more of just the conditions they were living in. And the mom had, I believe, some addiction issues, but ultimately, the goal should be to reunite families.
Yeah. And just to be clear, it was Victoria Rose Smith was the youngest, and she had 2 older brothers.
Right. Yeah.
That were in this home.
Right. So when she went to court to get custody of her children, whoever she was dealing with at DSS told her she didn't need an attorney. So she didn't know that she could have an advocate with her or that she even needed one. So she lost custody, which opened the 3 children up for adoption. She said that DSS told her it would just be better for the kids in general, and she trusted them. And the kids were placed in foster care. And before being placed with Ariel and her husband, they were thriving. They were doing great. They were happy and healthy. And the last time that she saw her children was in February of 2020. She didn't know that Victoria Rose had been murdered until she saw it on our local news. She almost didn't recognize her daughter because she had lost so much weight. And she did. She looked very frail and gaunt in the Instagram posts that the mom was making that she shouldn't have, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Yep. So the kids were placed with Ariel and Jerry in March of 2020, and the Robinsons had 2 biological sons of their own. And the adoption, ironically, was supposed to have been finalized on January 19th, which is the same day they were arrested for her murder. And Ariel had originally posted on August 15th, 2019 on her Instagram telling her followers that they had planned to adopt a child. And she was matched with a newborn, but the mother changed her mind about adopting the child out. and Ariel already had the nursery and had like a baby shower and that kind of thing. But before they got custody of Victoria Rose and her brothers, she posted a video on her social media not long after saying they wanted to adopt. 4 days later, August 19th, 2019, asking for donations for their desire to adopt, saying her goal was to get $30,000 in donations. And in September, she had raised $2,000 where she asked people, she needed 200 people to donate $10. She said she had complicated pregnancies, but she always wanted a daughter, which is why she wanted to adopt.
Yeah. So Ariel Robinson had been on The Worst Cooks in America on the Food Network, and she had won that. She had a large social media presence and constantly posted about their foster journey, which you can't do. We know several friends that foster, and that's a huge no-no.
Yeah, even if they post pictures, they completely have their face covered until that day where it's official. And then you start getting all the pictures of this sweet little mystery child that you've been wanting to see since they started posting. She was like every day posed pictures. It was gross.
Yeah.
It was posed, just it was so fake.
Yep. In the Instagram post, you could see Victoria look thin, and you could see bruising sometimes on her in photos. She constantly used hashtags with the photos: adoption, adoption journey, adoption matters, along with her comedy hashtag mom life and mom. And you also can't help but see in those photos, because we went through all of those, how tight she pulled her scalp. Victoria's scalp would be red.
Yeah, you could see the irritation. But it really, to me, the feeling I got from this woman is she had a little taste of that reality show fame.
Yeah.
And it really seemed to me, if you looked through that Instagram account, that this was more of kind of an audition to maybe get some kind of a reality show where we're adopting babies. Look at us. You know what I'm saying? It just didn't seem heartfelt, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So Ariel had also posted about people who hurt children and how they need to be held accountable. She called Victoria Rose her frenemy and would put Daddy's Girl on pictures of Victoria with Jerry and would say Victoria didn't want her to hold her. She also seemed jealous of her. In the pictures Ariel had with Victoria, they were posed and not natural, and you could see Victoria pulling away from her.
Yeah, because if you remember some of the pictures with Jerry, it was a natural kind of, she seemed comfortable. But in the pictures with Ariel, you could see she was leaning away from her, and it wasn't a genuine smile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bless it.
Yep. The day Victoria was murdered, first responders saw unexplained and extensive bruising all over her body. There was deep purple bruising on her abdomen, ear, abrasions on her face, bruising down her back and up and down both legs. Ariel's version of events was that Victoria had thrown up on the way to church, so they went home and Victoria fell asleep and there were no issues. She woke up and ate pancakes, and she was home alone with Ariel and Jerry. The other kids were at school. Ariel said she gave Victoria water, and Victoria had a stomach ache and said she was cold. Ariel said she put a heated blanket over her, and Victoria went limp. She says she started the Heimlich on her, and we said that was crazy.
Yeah.
But said it didn't appear to be working, so she pressed on Victoria's stomach and told Jerry to call 911. She says they did CPR until first responders arrived. Initial investigators on the scene asked about the bruising, and she said it was because she was pushing her belly hard. When asked about the bruising on her back and legs, Ariel blamed Victoria's 7-year-old brother, saying he had anger issues and had caused bruising. When asked what he used to cause such bruising, Ariel said he would pick up anything he could. So to investigate that, detectives went to the boy's school to inquire about his behavior, and they told him that he was a happy kid with no signs of abusive behavior to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, it's just sick to blame her poor little brother.
Yeah.
Every picture you saw with all three siblings, there was no hesitation there.
Yeah.
She looked very natural. So her husband met with authorities for about 2 hours and said he had never hurt Victoria, but Ariel would spank her and beat her with different things, including a belt, a paddle, flip flops, or he said, whatever. He said the day Ariel was spanking her with a belt, this is the day she was murdered, he said he could hear it from outside. He could hear the beating from outside. When he came in and saw the extensive bruising, he told her, "You've gone too far." At the bond hearing, when he said this, or when this was said by the attorneys, I don't remember, Ariel was shaking her head no. And so Jerry said Victoria was put in an Epsom salt bath, and he went to CVS to get some medication that reduces bruising. He was seen on camera in that CVS buying those items. And then he said he received a call to come back home at 2 p.m. My theory is that I don't think she was dead when he left for CVS. I think when he left, that's when the last of the beating before she succumbed to it occurred. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You're fostering a kid. You can't spank them.
No, at all.
That's a big no-no.
Right. And so the other thing too that I didn't put in here that was a big deal, they were in a lot of financial trouble. And that was something that DSS totally missed. They had not made the taxes on their car in 2 years. Here in South Carolina, especially in Greenville, you get taxed to death. It is a high tax bracket. So they were behind on car payments, and also their house, they had defaulted on their loan, on their mortgage payment. So if DSS hadn't investigated that, they were not, the very reason that they took them away from their mother is what they put them in, a situation where that house could have been taken from them. And then these people have 3 foster kids and 2 biological kids.
Yeah.
So it was, Jerry was released on bond in April of this year. He's expected to testify against Ariel. I don't think he'll skirt any responsibility in this case, but it does seem like they're setting him up for a deal.
Yeah.
So as of right now, she's still in jail with no bond, and she was devastated at that bond hearing when the judge denied it. She just, remember, she put her head down and was shaking her head and started crying on the way out.
Yep.
She's still in jail with no bond. Just recently, the court ordered a competency exam for her. It's like Valo 2.0.
Yeah.
And there was a grand jury indictment that was handed down. I have not been able to find out what that was. And also they asked for her to submit DNA.
Yep.
Like you said, just recently, probably to test certain things to see if her DNA was on it, that maybe she used to hurt this poor or kill this poor child.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep an eye on this case for you. If it goes to trial, we will definitely be sitting in that one for sure. It's just right down the road from us. And, but we still, think about Victoria, sweet Victoria, and her siblings and her family, because they had to fight DSS to even be told where they were going to bury this child. Yeah. They told them they had no rights to the body. And
it was a big, huge mess.
It got, big news here locally about that. And eventually they did tell them, "You've been to her grave. I have not."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of the summary on that. We'll keep an eye on this case next year, and hopefully we'll get some answers and some justice for Victoria Rose.
Yeah.
Have a good evening, everybody.